And here with some perspective on these exclusive interviews is Tracy Walder, former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Tracy, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
And we just heard Brian Entin asking BTK's daughter about this interesting potential connection, the likelihood that Kohberger may have reached out directly to BTK in prison. How common is it for killers to study past killers, and how likely would it be to try to communicate with a convicted killer?
Well, that was just a heartbreaking interview to watch. I think it's highly likely that killers studied the work of past killers. I mean, really, Kohberger is the case study for this. I mean, he studied the entirety of the criminal mind. And so I don't think he was just only focused on BTK. I'm sure he looked at other serial killers as well. However, given the close relationship that he had in terms of taking classes with Dr. Ramsland, he very well could have had the opportunity to reach out to BTK. But my best guess, my best hypothesis is that it was probably through Dr. Ramsland that he would have done that. She would have facilitated that, given the relationship that she has with BTK.
And meanwhile, we also heard those comments from the suspect's classmates at WSU. Does anything strike you about how they described his demeanor after the events of November?
So what's interesting, I've been reading a lot about what folks have said about him. And the one consistent thing, though, has been that he's very, very bright, exceptionally so. And what I find interesting about that is that really speaks to his arrogance and the fact that I do feel he was very prepared for this. And he really felt that he could get away with this by really studying how to commit really this perfect kill. I think the other thing that does strike me is the change in behavior. That's really something that's incredibly telling. We look for witnesses at the FBI that really can speak to that, because that's essential when a case goes to trial. We want that witness testimony. And so the fact that he wasn't necessarily agitated, but the fact that he seemed very amped up is actually interesting to me, which in a way indicates that he almost got sort of a thrill or a release from this murder that he allegedly committed. So I found those two things to be the most interesting.
And as we were speaking about just yesterday, officials saying that this is a new arm of the investigation now, the focus turning to motive. In your experience, how does one now go about piecing together a motive for this suspect? And is this the moment that the overkill of one particular victim that we were speaking about before comes into play?
I absolutely think that is the moment where this comes into play. Is that the person that he had originally made his target? I do believe that he selected one of them to be sort of his target. And I absolutely think that is where this comes into play, coupled with that digital forensics evidence that they got from his apartment in Pullman, Washington. I think that's going to be very critical. People leave that online digital trail, and a lot of times that really, really helps investigators in terms of looking at motive. It's really one of the most important things. I do think some witness testimony here is going to be important, but for all intents and purposes, it sounds to me like he kept to himself a lot and didn't have sort of those deep relationships. So I really do think that digital evidence and digital forensics is really what's going to help sort of flesh out that motive, particularly now that they have those warrants to search his apartment.
I do want to circle back to something you were just saying, which is that consistently we're seeing in reports and from people who know him that he's incredibly intelligent. And for someone who has studied this line, not just undergrad, but master's, and now working towards his PhD, is it strange? Does it strike you as odd that this was such a messy kill? And obviously innocent until proven guilty, but for this suspect, if he did commit this, that it did use a knife, that it was such close contact, that there was so much blood, that we were seeing blood dripping out of the exterior wall of that house. Does that sort of kill strike you as strange for someone who has studied how people do this and how people get away with this?
Natasha, that's an excellent question. And I think that he's working towards his PhD, as you mentioned, and I actually think this was a challenge that he wanted. I think this speaks to his arrogance. I think this speaks to his ego. I think he came prepared. I think, again, I'm just hypothesizing, he probably had a Tyvek suit on. He probably had, his hair in some kind of netting. He probably had on booties. He probably thought that he could do one of the most violent and evidence-riddled types of crimes and perhaps get away with this. I think he enjoyed the challenge of this. Again, I'm just hypothesizing, but that's what I think he wanted.
All right, Tracy Walder, always appreciate you coming on, always appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.